Hello and welcome to Let's Review. The Borderlands series has now been going on for a little while. It actually all started back in 2009 with the release of a game that I found just kind of okay. It wasn't really bad, it just didn't live up to its potential, particularly in its story department, which I found really on the weak side. When Borderlands 2 released, however, they upped their game significantly, and they managed to tell a really solid, really well written, really funny story with some genuinely great characters. Into this world now comes Telltale, makers of dialogue-heavy adventure games. And does this marriage work? Well, to answer that, we start as we always do, with the gameplay. The gameplay of Tales from the Borderlands is pretty much what you'd expect from a Telltale game. It's mostly about the dialogue choices that you make, but it also does have some sections where you wander around and interact with things. This is the control system of Tales from the Borderlands, and as you can see, it's pretty standard Telltale. You can wander along and you can find things to look at or interact with. So if I look at this bullymong, there'll be a little cinematic where the characters talk about it.
Ugh, does every animal on this planet have to look like a giant monster?
That is a fairly redundant question for this planet. So, I can also have a look at my inventory, which at the moment includes a briefcase full of money, which technically is being carried by Vaughn over there, and a stun baton, which is useful in some of the action sequences. Unique to this particular character is his cybernetic eye, which can also be used to scan items, which will give you a little pop-up bit of information, which is usually quite amusing. Sometimes this eye is also used to hack various pieces of machinery, which can occasionally lead to minor mini-games, but they're usually not that complicated. You wander around, you'll find various things to interact with, and sometimes you will have to interact with things rather than just look at them. So we can look at this seated man, or we can just move past and ignore him.
World-famous hall of Pandoran luminaries.
And as you can see, this game is very, very story-driven.
Planet's turbulent history, and hear how each met their grisly fate.
The vast majority of your time will be spent in cutscenes, but a lot of them do allow you to choose what you will say. So they are interactive.
There's nowhere else to go. Come on, let's just get through it.
So if we head down this corridor, we can look at some of these other characters. And some of them we might, and we can also occasionally find things to interact with.
No? What about you, huh? Are you even looking? Of course I'm looking. I'm
Formerly a scientific researcher who worked for Hyperion, Professor Nakayama was obsessed with cloning Handsome Jack.
And as you can see, if I'd looked at Professor Nakayama, I would have found that myself. However, by choosing to ignore it, the game knows that I need that item.
His Hyperion ID drive with him, though. Hyperion pays out a nice bonus for recovery.
And as a result, we get it anyway. So that has been added to our inventory. If we were playing as the other character, the option to activate our cyber eye would be replaced with an option to look at the amount of cash we had acquired. As cash is a factor in this game, but it's primarily used for cosmetic upgrades. So alterations to the character's designs and so on and so forth. And fundamentally, that really is it for the gameplay sections of Tales from the Borderlands. It's not terribly complicated, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Let's be honest about this. Nobody plays a Telltale game for its gameplay. Because at the end of the day, it's functional and nothing else. It's designed to be there as a foundation to support the story. The action sequences use QuickTime events, and frankly, you don't need to see those because you've all seen QuickTime events before and they're just not that interesting. They work as a means of giving you a little bit of input, but for the most part, they're just there, and at worst, they're kind of annoying. Ultimately, the gameplay isn't that bad, in all honesty, and I don't have a problem with it, but if you're looking for something to compare to the other Borderlands games, you're going to be very, very disappointed. That's not a problem given what this game is, it's just something you need to be aware of. The story is where Tales from the Borderlands really shines. It follows two main characters, the first of which is named Reese. He's a Hyperion exec and, well, frankly, he's kind of an idiot. Following a major disappointment, he and his friend Vaughn end up travelling down to the surface of Pandora in search of a vault key. Was that the wisest manoeuvre, given that Pandora makes even Arrakis look, well, pleasant by comparison, frankly? Oh, God, no. I mean, I did stress that this guy was an idiot, right? The second of these main characters is Fiona, a Pandoran con artist who, along with her sister and her mentor, are attempting to pull off the biggest scam of their lives. Needless to say, these two plans both go awry, and the two end up forced to work together in order to find a vault. Is there anything on Pandora that does not come down to the search for a vault? No. No, I think the only reason people ever come to Pandora is to find vaults. Well, it's either that or Skag Pizza's not a lot more delicious than people give it credit for. The reason that this story works as well as it does really is in the writing, because this game is bloody hilarious. It's fast-paced, and it realises that the Borderlands series has always had this sense of the absurd, and frankly, it just takes that and it runs with it. There are times when this game is downright silly. And by God, do I love it for it. That is because there are a lot of times when you are simply an unusually tall child. Well, what's the point of being grown up if you can't be a bit childish now and then? The difficulty of talking about the plot of this game is that I really don't want to spoil any of the really good twists in it, or for that matter, spoil any of the jokes. One thing I will say is that this game is absolutely lousy with cameos from characters from the other Borderlands games. And yet, somehow they manage to avoid feeling like shameless fan service. Aren't cameos almost always shameless fan service? Well, not if they play a significant part in the story, and, well, at least 3 of them do. It also gives a chance for some of the characters who haven't had a lot of fleshing out to get a little bit more. In particular, one of my favourite characters actually gets a fairly extended part, and I really appreciate that. And while I'm on the subject, can we just talk about Loaderbot for a second? Why do you even bother asking those questions? You know that not even I can stop you from talking about something you actually want to. I think it's mostly just a British politeness thing. Regardless, I really love Loaderbot. In my mind, he joins the ranks of truly great robot characters, and that's in spite of the fact that I can't really pin down what it is about him that I love so much. He's just absolutely wonderful, and he's endearing in a way that Claptrap from the main games just never was. Overall, I cannot be more positive about the story and characters of Tales from the Borderlands, because I think on this one, Telltale have really hit it out of the park. And frankly, that's all I have to say. Graphically speaking, the game isn't particularly demanding, though that's largely due to the fairly stylized art style. Though it is worth noting that there are a few frame rate drops at the beginning of each action sequence. Now, this is probably something you're not going to notice unless, like me, you've got a frame rate counter running in the corner, but it is something to be aware of. It's also worth bringing up that the load times can be a little bit long sometimes. But if you've got a fairly high-end PC, you might not notice either of these issues. Overall, the graphics are by no means amazing, but they serve exactly the function they want to serve, and overall they are perfectly fine. The Borderlands series has always had a rather unique cel-shaded art style, and frankly, it's worked really well for it in the past. Here, they've married their cel-shaded art style to Telltale's own cel-shaded art style, and the result is a game that actually looks really damn good. I have absolutely nothing but compliments for the art team on this game. All of the characters look really good, everything works, and frankly all I can say is, job well done. The voice acting in this game is actually really damn good. It features Troy Baker and Laura Bailey as Reese and Fiona, and honestly, they both sell the absolute hell out of their roles. The rest of the cast? is also pretty damn good, especially those playing recurring characters, because by now they've had long enough to just fall into their roles very naturally and easily, and overall, the voiceover work is just really damn good. The music is certainly not bad, though I'll be honest, it's not quite as good as that you'll find in the main Borderlands games. As I say, that doesn't make it bad by any means, just not especially memorable. The sound effects mostly seem to be taken from the main games, so that does at least give them an air of consistency. Though I'll be honest, the sound effects for a lot of the weapons was one of the things that I found the Borderlands series has so far been fairly weak on. A lot of them just not sounding like they've got a lot of punch to them. Overall though, the audio is pretty damn good on the whole. So, did I enjoy Tales from the Borderlands? Oh, absolutely I did. Should you buy it? I am happy to say that for any fan of Borderlands, this game is an absolute must-buy. It establishes some really interesting new parts of the lore, it extends what's already there, and several of the events of the game look like they're probably going to have pretty major ramifications for the rest of the series. If you're not a fan of the Borderlands series, this might not be the game for you, but if you are, I can absolutely recommend it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I am reviewing another Sakura game next week, and you know what that means. Martin? Thank you. I will see you later. Cheers.
Come join the party in the dust and the sand. Chip on your shoulder, sweat and dirt on your hands. Machines in slumber start to lumber